This is OfffPlanet Radio.
Welcome. This is the OfffPlanet Radio podcast. This is kind of going to do a loose conversation tonight. We're recording this, interestingly enough, on September 21st, which is the fall. What is this? Equinox, solstice? It's Equinox. It's the autumnal equinox. That's what it is. Seasons change. It is autumn. And I have on the line with me my, I hate to say co-host. I would like to say she is kind of my other voice, the other side of this whole project that we're kind of engaged in. But Chris, good evening and welcome.
Oh, well, welcome to our constant ongoing conversations, Randy. I think we're a balancing routine. I need balance. Sometimes you do. And we seem to find that when we talk to each other, the balance that the other one needs. It's like a seesaw, and we're able to keep it without crashing to the ground, which may be without each other to bounce things off of. We spend a little more time on the ground.
I mean, crazy. The energies are crazy. We're in this really interesting period of time right now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're in the Shemitah, which is some kind of year of fallow land, which then goes into a Jubilee, a year of forgiveness. Yeah, which is what, interestingly enough, the Pope's in Cuba today. He went over there and told all the people in Cuba that they should live their lives for themselves and stop living for a system. The Pope's telling this to people that have lived under Castro for almost 60 years? Really?
Yeah.
And he's about to come here, and he's gonna shake the big stick at us as well. Really very interesting times. The blood moon coming up, which is the fourth of the tetrad, the end of the tetrad cycle. And these things are supposed to be prophetically important. And I think they are, because, Chris, you and I have talked about this. The cycles seem to run over very long periods of time. And since 2012, we've just had this kind of wild, crazy ride. I mean, whatever I know a lot of people were, people are funny. There were a bunch of people that were expecting, I don't know, to be transformed into pixie dust or something. And then there was a whole bunch of people that were like pissed off because the earth the planet didn't like crash and burn. I'm like, what are you people, delusional or something? But something did change in that period of time. And we've been on this roller coaster ride now since 2012, where we see these escalating cycles of shifts and changes in consciousness. And it's all good and bad thrown together at the same time. On the one hand, people do seem to be waking up from their slumber. They're kind of like, when you come out of surgery and the anesthesia's starting to wear off and you go, oh, crap, that hurts. Wait a minute, I'm awake. I feel kind of fuzzy. There's light in the window, but damn, that hurts. That's kind of the way it has been for a lot of people. And other people were like, real wired up and energetic, and they're pissed off too because they figured out now that well, pretty much everything, the whole system's been jerking us around for, well, since, we'll just draw an imaginary line and say since World War II. So post-World War II America, with the financial system, the military-industrial complex, the QFOs, and the ever-widening panorama of the paranormal, all of it's thrown together into this gigantic stew, and then into town comes the Pope. Boy, what a great week it's going to be.
Yeah, it's craziness. Plus, you didn't add in, which I see less and less, but they're still out there, that there's an asteroid, I think, believed due this week that's going to end all life as we know it. And I find that very interesting because the same thing. People are like, this is going to happen. And, you know, they like scold you, absolutely positive of it. Yet they're making YouTubes about it and, you know, spending time yelling at me. And as in 2012, the people that were insistent that life was going to end, that was the end of it, why weren't you then out spending the last minutes of your life with the people you love, doing the things that mean the most to you, and having a great time? Why are you sitting on the computer with me if you really believe that?
Or looking at your phone.
Or looking at your phone. Or, you know, scolding people. Get out there. I mean, if I really thought that was going to be it, my husband and I would be out, you know, burning money and running around naked and do whatever the hell we wanted to do. So this is very strange to me. And that same concept of being very annoyed that the earth isn't destroyed exists with this crowd as well. And we have all these things all happening at once. And everybody's in like an upheaval, either waiting for a miraculous change to occur, or annoyed that we aren't all going to die tomorrow. And it's just, they're in angst, but they really don't have their heads clear, as you said, really why or what's going on with them. All they know, they're in this great angst. And I think it's also a case of everybody missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talk to you about that all the time. They know there's something not right, and they grab onto whatever concept they can use to fit that feeling, but it's the wrong things, you know, and they don't happen, and that's not what's going on, and they are just remain in this chaotic angst all the time. And it's starting, I think, to stifle and drown a lot of people as well. It's, you know, not a good thing. It's not healthy.
Well, they're in pain because they don't understand this rapidly accelerating change mode that we've been in. And I mean, anybody, just pick a number. If you're over 40, you've lived long enough to see things change dramatically in your lifetime.
Right.
If you're over 50, that plus 10, and then on it goes. But the bottom line is that you've lived long enough now that you realize this is not the world that you were born into. This is a completely different dynamic. The political landscape has shifted. The social landscape has changed. We live in a world now where we are increasingly connected globally to the point where, well, Skype was down today, and I got cranky because I use Skype to do work, as do you.
Right.
And all of a sudden you kind of realize, you know, we're really dependent on this technology. And when it doesn't work, which, boy, man, when it doesn't work, thanks Microsoft, by the way, for buying Skype and ruining it. When it doesn't work, it really messes up your day.
It does. But see, I'm even 10 years plus, I'm 64. And I've seen a lot of things, including, I can tell you when everything started to make a serious turn and seriously change. And when I think back about this, yes, the nature around us, and I mean nature, the sky, the air, everything started to change from when you and I were children, Randy.
Yes.
And then when we hit your 20s and my 30s, you started to notice that things were just not the same in nature, but they were still holding on. Around the 90s is when I saw dramatic changes.
Yes.
And from then on, it's like a different world to me. The one I grew up with was one different planet than it is that I'm living in today. And that's the physical sense. But mentally, the people have also changed enormously in the way they process and think out things, or should I say now do not think out things. And their just emotional being, their creative side, all of that has also, in my view, shut down as the decades went by. That when we were children, we were very creative and very connected to all the kids in our neighborhood, and we played and we made forts and we thought up games and we could entertain ourselves too late into a summer's night. Today, that is all taken away, and the creativity has been replaced by machines, computer games, computers, television, that type of thing. You don't see where I live that often kids playing outside, just playing like you used to years ago. Everything has been shut down, put in a compartment like a house with a play date, instead of the kids just figuring out that by themselves. That's organized. They're hooked to machines from a very, very early age, and they're being shut down as far as that kind of creativity and learning and even absorbing. It's all controlled and very unhealthy. And with that is going love, family connections, the desire for community, being in part of and enjoying and taking part in your community. You don't see that across America like you once did. And we've become a different type of human being. If you took all the kids, let's say 30 and under, and brought them in time back to when I was a teenager and a young kid, they would have great difficulty living with that type of society, fitting in with that kind of openness and freedom, and just entertaining themselves without a machine. So there's been drastic changes that were not changed for hundreds of years before that, and remained up to, as I said, I'm going to say like the 80s and starting the 90s. We took a hard left turn into a new era of time that I think will forever change humanity. And I know you feel a lot of this too.
You know, when I'm talking to you and I'm flashing back on things, when we were kids, electronics weren't a big part of our lives. This was a big deal, an 8-transistor radio. This was back in the days when transistors were not millions on a circuit board the size of, a small wafer, but 8 transistors on an IC board inside of a radio was a big deal. It had a big antenna on it. And I used to lay outside in the summertime with my transistor radio and listen to Pittsburgh Pirates games, which I could get from KDKA out of Pittsburgh at night when the signal bent this way. That was quite a thrill.
Yeah.
Other than that, a pair of Army surplus walkie-talkies occasionally. But what we did have were imaginations. Mm-hmm. And we made stuff, and we improvised, and again, imagination comes into play with this, even as young kids. I mean, Whether you played cowboys or you played army, which, let's face it, I grew up in post-World War II America. So I had a choice. It was either the cowboy outfit or the soldier, the G.I. Joe outfit.
Right.
Or you just went out in the woods somewhere. I mean, we had swimming holes when we were kids. We used to have these jungle vines that we could swing off of into the creek. We would go fishing. We'd go out looking for salamanders in the stream. We spent our lives outside, even in the winter. I mean, we had a pond we went to play hockey.
Right. Ice skating.
Sledding, ice skating. And we were engaged with nature. The scariest thing of all is now, most people wouldn't notice that their world had changed around them because they're not looking at the world they live in anymore.
Worse than that, Randy, we talk to our friends. We would go find the neighborhood friends that we hung out with or played with, depending on our ages, and we would spend a lot of time talking to laughing and carrying on and joking and smoking and doing all things we shouldn't. And
exactly, yeah.
Somebody got some beer going, but we would talk to each other and communicate. Not like today. I see kids all the time together. They're both looking at their phones and texting. They're not like fully engaged as they should be with one another, sitting right next to each other. That's weird to me. Are they losing the ability to communicate with a person they're actually looking in the face at? To eye-to-eye communication being lost? Well, if that's the case, they're losing a tremendous amount of the ability to function as a human. And as I said, I worry about even the idea of love. When I was young, the thing was you would hope to find someone you loved and get married and have a family. And then when you did fall in love, it was a great thing because you would be alone with a boy or a girl, whatever it was, and you would fall in love. You wouldn't have hookup sex or hookups or relationships that you really didn't want to get into because you're real busy doing your own thing and don't want to be bothered with that. We continue with that. They will not be human communication so that relationships, family relationships, having children, the feeling, the emotion of being in love and falling in love is a wonderful thing. It's one of the gifts that a human can have and share with another human. That's all being lost. And to me, that's dramatic and the saddest thing I can think of, but I see it happening. And it's just, I got news for the humans today. It's not normal. It's not what you were born originally to do or be. You're not a machine. You're a human, but you're giving it up. And soon you probably will be at least part a machine if you don't stop it now. We're at the cusp. We are. You either jump or you're going to fall. So if you want to remain part of a human race that existed for thousands and thousands of years, you've got to stop what you're doing now. And if not, and you just want to be part of what you could be, give up much of what you should be able to feel and experience in life, and just be dominated, controlled, and overtaken, keep doing what you're doing because you're on the road.
We're kind of living in the time which is a realization of what I call the nightmare. And what a lot of people don't realize is this whole AI transhumanist agenda isn't really, Chris, this really is not all that new. Apparently, when I'm doing research, and by the way, for the listeners out there who want to go into some research on this, I put up a link yesterday. There's actually a blog article. It's posted onto the front page of OfffPlanetRadio.com. It's a place where I've been putting up some articles from time to time. I no longer consider myself a blogger because I don't have the ability to produce at that level, but it's kind of an information stream of things that I put up. Excellent resource here. It's called the Transhumanism Pandemic, and it's written by Aaron McCollum. Some of you may know who Aaron McCollum is. He was interviewed on Project Camelot back about, I want to say 2008, and McCollum was part of a Black Ops program, much like MK Ultra. And for a while he made the rounds. Unfortunately, Aaron kind of got burned by the system. He was basically taken down through a disinformation campaign, and he's since gone offline. I contacted his publisher about this book, and Aaron can't do interviews, but I got permission to use the book as an information source and to quote it. So I'm going to put it out there. The link is on offplanetradio.com on the website. You can download this as an ebook. It's a 361-page research book on transhumanism, AI, and where this is going. And Aaron calls it a prophetic work. He actually is predicting that this is the way humanity's going. And he uncovers a lot of information, some of which I was familiar with and some of which I'm still learning, but it appears as though the original concept of the transhuman actually goes back to a work written by a Catholic writer, and you would be very familiar with this. Dante,
Dante.
Which was the writer of the trilogy Paradiso, Purgatorio, and Inferno. Dante's Inferno.
Yes.
He was the one who actually coined the original term. And again, I'm not looking at the book right now, so sort of riffing off of memory here. And it was Dante who actually coined the original term transhumane in one of those works. So this is an idea that is both very new and very old, the idea of an artificial intelligence, intelligent machines. And it seems like I'm having this conversation with a lot of people these days. I had a talk with a lady last week who was actually a moderator on Project Avalon for a number of years, and talking about AI, and she wanted to know what my opinion on AI was. And I said, well, here's the deal. I don't think there's an intelligence that can be fabricated by man that will be greater than man because of the X factor. And she asked me what the X factor was, and I said, well, it's simply this. For those who are truly human, truly sentient, and possess the power to create, which is actually the power of love, I don't think you can synthesize that, and I don't think you can exceed it with a machine, because any algorithm that we create will be obliterated by the creative impulses of the human being. Having said that, I also think that if we so choose to go down this path, we can submit to it. We can become machine-like. And in fact, that's a lot of what we're really seeing right now. I noticed years ago, and I noticed this because I was doing intensive computer work back in the early 90s, that my own consciousness was changing. And I'll give you an example. Because we are now interfacing with machines whose clock cycles are in milliseconds, we're also functioning on a brain level at a speeded up process. We're now dealing with machines that multitask, so we multitask. We deal with machines that move very quickly. We're speeding up with the machines. Our attention spans are shorter. Our ability to focus is remarkably reduced now, largely because we're communicating in these very quick little text messages, Facebook posts, blurbs, links, hyperlinks that take you out into cyberspace where you then get lost. Talk about lost in space. You ever do this? You ever start doing research on something, and I mean you're focused, you're ready to go at it. 2 hours go by, you've clicked through all these links, and you've found some interesting stuff and completely forgotten what you originally set out to research.
Yeah, I think I have. I may have, yeah. Get sidetracked, you go off into a different direction.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it obfuscated your original intent and took you someplace else completely. Your attention was hijacked.
Yes. And that goes on all the time. Now, we're talking about AI, and we're talking about uh, humans building computers that they can then design to think without our input. And they will start to think for themselves and function. And that could end up being a big problem for us. That's AI. There's also another side of this that I think people better seriously consider. And that's the fact that we could possibly be and have been, maybe not always, but somewhere along the line it may have picked up or changed. We may be controlled by another, how can I put this without sounding like a, raving insane woman, but let's say there's a possibility we were interfered with by another species that is far more advanced than we are, and they decided that they just wanted to put a little bit more input into this planet or the humans on this planet, because they decided it's time maybe for them to have a bit more control, or they didn't like where this planet was going or how we were running it, or for maybe even the fact that we were becoming too free-willed and we're going to do our own thing with this planet, and maybe that didn't suit them. I could go on and think of probably scenarios all night long on why they would want to change things here. But let's say that that was a possibility. The way to do that would be to gain control over us. And how would you do that? Well, how in any type of takeover does any force that's larger and stronger than another force, what's the first thing they try to do to make it easy for them to take you over? They divide and conquer you. Mm. And the way to divide and conquer human beings seems to me to have been far more simple than anyone could have ever guessed. And that would be to stick a phone in our hand, hook us up into the internet, hook us up into the grid of Wi-Fi, give us all kinds of devices to entertain us, while at the same time it interferes with our brain mechanics and changes us so that we become very subservient and, oh my goodness, become creatures that cannot put down the machine, cannot put down the phone, have to check it every few seconds, and become partially mechanical ourselves, while the free will of that brain is being lost or dummied down or turned off. Now, if that would happen, the next thing you know, humans might insist that not only they constantly carry a handheld gadget or sit in front of a screen of some type, they start putting them on as watches and jewelry. And then what's next? Oh, they probably get chipped themselves. Maybe they can see it right under their eyelid and not even have to carry a device. They are the device. Now, I'm being a little facetious here, of course, but I'm also telling you the God's honest truth. Now you find out not only is everybody freely and willingly hooked up to this grid, where they are now having their brains changed into another form of mechanics to work a certain way, which is far less dimensional than the freedom that they had before they were hooked up. And they're now more, what is it, Randy, more two-dimensional than whatever. And their thinking is easily controlled, and they are fed constantly, even subconsciously, without them even knowing it's going on, all kinds of information to behave and act and think in a certain way. What do you see? You see divorces. You see people just not getting married. You see populations dying, like the Caucasian race is at a zero population, which means it's extinct. It'll never come back. We're just dying off. We'll be gone in a few hundred years completely. and so forth and so on. How easy. Now throw in the fact that they're spraying you with all kinds of stuff that you don't understand. And now, again, I had a brain slip. I can't think of the guy's name who found out through all kinds of scientific investigations and went to labs and talked to all kinds of scientists that they did find very strange chemicals in what's being sprayed all over. No explanation for it. And fear that there may even be nanotechnology being sprayed, which means you have no choice. If you breathe, you take this in.
Calcivella?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that's him. You breathe, you're taking this stuff in, and now you've got machinery, little tiny robots inside that can self-replicate and do whatever they want with you, basically. Now, this is the road you are all on, whether you like it or believe it or don't, or mad at me because you really like your devices. Fine. But understand, these are the choices that you're making for you, for your future, for your family's future, for children if you have them, which you may not if you're young and getting stuck into this. This is what's ahead, not what you think. This is what's ahead. A controlled, dummied down society with less capacity to their humanity than they had 200 years ago, and you're doing it all to yourselves. And I plead with people, this is the last of your free will. Do not give it over to something that may control you that you don't even know is doing it to you. Be more cautious. Cut down your time with these machines. Put down your cell phones. Regather and regroup with your families. Find someone you love and build a relationship with them. Do not let this command your life. And it does, and it's heartbreaking. My own family, I watch them. They cannot put down those cell phones. And they are separating away. They do not want to spend time talking to you anymore. They're too busy in their own private little cell, locked up with their gadgets, doing their own thing without any other human contact. And it's terrifying. And if that doesn't terrify all of you, I don't know what will. I really don't.
This is ultimately a multi-pronged attack on the human and on the planet as well, because we're attached to the planet. We are the planet. There's a planetary consciousness. There's a human consciousness. We operate within the same frequency range. And so the attack is multi-threaded, but part of this is voluntary. We can't control right now the weather modification chemtrails that are going on. We can't really control the EMF blasting that's going on. We can't really control all of the GMO products that are flowing through our food supply that's changing the essential nature of the planet as well. But there is a point where we can choose. The two choices we have is that we can learn how to operate in a technological society prudently. We have computers, we have phones. These are part of our daily lives. For many people, it's not an option to completely disengage, pull the plug, and never look at one again. On the other hand, do you really need to spend all of your day plugged into Facebook with your face in Skype, looking at your emails, doing Twitter? I mean, there are people out there, and, this may offend someone. I am not online all the time. I understand that apparently one of my devices puts up some sort of flag or semaphore that says, I'm on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not even looking at Facebook. As much as I try, I sometimes miss the fact that my phone, which has some of these services on them, is constantly on. Therefore, people tend to think that I'm online all the time. I'm not. And,
right, I'm not either. But I don't, only to work. That's it.
Many people are so online, and I watch them. If I make a post on Facebook, within minutes, they pile on it. They're like ants on a pile of sugar.
Yeah, isn't that something? Right. And it's like, how do you even know them? I actually came here right now to put something up, and no offense, but I just want to put this up and leave.
I
I only
do.
want, yeah, that's what
And
I want to do.
I
Yeah.
duck and dodge because sometimes I need to get on Skype to use it. And then when I pull Skype up, all these little messages come up, and I have numbers beside my icons of people that are trying to reach me. And it's worse than a telephone answering machine where the cassette tape is full. Because at least in the old days, analog wise, you had to sit down and listen to the messages, and you would write down the numbers, take the message, and you'd rewind the tape. And this just sits there in your face, just kind of taunting you, and to the point where you know what? I'm just going to shut the damn thing down. I flip the screen down onto the notebook, and I walk away. And it's not that I don't love the people that connect with me. It's not that I don't appreciate the audience or the people on Facebook, the people on Twitter, the people on Skype. It's just that I refuse to be dictated to by machines. Even when those machines are sending little signals to me from people.
And not only that, Randy, we all work with people that, we need to work with and get along with and everything. And you and I, we're on this because we're trying to share what we're trying to get across to the world using this media to do it. And it's great. We use it for that. But at the end of the day, if I give now so many, 2 hours a day to writing something or interviewing somebody. I do 1 or 2 things a day. And that's it. I have a family and I have a husband that I love to spend time with. And we have our routines that we do. We grill on the deck, or we do this, or we do that. And we love that time together. Why would I want to be sitting in front of a machine trying to have a conversation with someone I never met before in my life that's messaging me, asking me, kind of dopey things that they don't even have something to tell me that's like interesting or important, like what are you doing, are you hanging out, or, I want to get to know you. And especially if that's a man, I'll say I'm a married woman, I don't want to get to know you. That still doesn't stop them. What is wrong with these people? Don't they have loved ones they want to spend time with? Don't they have a friend that they'd rather go hang out and take a walk with, or get a hamburger with or something? Why are they sitting inside with a machine, or if they're outside with a machine? That already tells you we're in deep, deep trouble. The last thing you want to do is like work till you drop dead of exhaustion at night with the machine attached to you. But that's what's going on here. And if you're lonely and you're spending all your time on Facebook or in a chat room or something like that, you already need to go talk to someone. You're in trouble. You have to have actual human contact. One-on-one, flesh on flesh, eyes looking at another set of eyes. You need contact with another human, or you're going to be in trouble. So, this is already in full swing, deep, deep doo-doo for most people. So, all we can do is hope that if you can't give it up, fine, but you got to cut it back. And you've got to find real life, too. Real time, real life. And, I just don't know what to tell them. And you can see people are now ruder to each other and short, don't look at each other. If you're out shopping, there's no human contact back and forth. Years ago, people actually talked to each other when they met out on the street or were shopping. And when they saw their neighbors, they actually had conversations with them. All that's it's gone. And once they divide you, they will conquer you, be it a government or another species, or I can't even imagine what it could be. But that is what's going on. Maybe they just want you to be a very obedient consumer. I don't know. But I do know you're being controlled. Stop it. Don't let it happen.
again, we're being altered biochemically, molecularly, our basic electrical system, even the electrical rate of the planet itself is being altered, I think, as a result. Because we're so connected. This is the part we don't get. We're connected to the planet, and we're connected to it energetically.
And we're connected to each other.
Exactly. And so there's a heartbeat. There's something that happens with people. They synchronize. You talked about love earlier. When you love someone, you synchronize with that person. The
Right.
whole kind of, I know it sounds like a cliche, two hearts beat as one, but it's true. It's true that we synchronize with other human beings. When we begin to synchronize with machines, the machine then becomes the arbiter in what is basically an emotionless state, because the machine doesn't have emotions. And this is the place that we're headed to. This is what Kara St. Louis referred to as the predator. The predator simply sits in the corner and watches. It assimilates. It's like the Borg on Star Trek. It basically is pulling you into a place where you are less than you were before. So the technology, in order to take us to the singularity, will not make us greater, it will make us less than. Therefore, it's not the machine that conquers, it's us that conquer ourselves by allowing ourselves to engage at this level.
That's right. You cannot give up your free will. And that's what this is about. It's your will over just giving in and being taken over by something that has no emotion, no capacity to feel, is just cold stone, a machine. And you mentioned something before with the Twitter thing, where it's just so many characters and everything, and texting in general. I used to get paragraphs or even a whole page telling me of something that extreme happened to a person, and they wanted to tell me to see if maybe I could write about it or help them with them or tell them what to do. And they would give me a pretty good description of what's going on. Now it's down to, I get like a sentence that I'm supposed to somehow decipher, translate, yeah. And like I saw UFO, get me on list, was one thing, like I said. And I said,
we're becoming, wait, look.
What list? What are you talking about? I can't read your brain. And I thought to myself, this person can't even articulate what he's trying to say or think. That's because they are so overtaken by this. If he could have just sent me maybe the little, what do you call the little faces and the little figurines? Emojis. Just wanted to give me emoji. I'm lost. I don't do that stuff. I'm a writer, for God's sakes, people. I need words. You have to tell me what you think.
Well, that's where we're at now. we're basically becoming cryptogons. We're communicating through increasingly. When you reduce language, I forget who it was that said this originally, but it was a philosophy professor that told me, language is not just how we communicate, it's how we think. Our language forms the metasystem by which we communicate internally, hence how we then externalize our thoughts.
So what happens if that's changed on us, Randy, by constantly brainwashing or entering your brain and your body with this technology, which it all can do, by the way? What would happen if that mix was broken that you just described?
I don't know how many people out there have ever studied a second language. If you get good enough with a second language, you will find that you begin to think in that language, and you will find that there are concepts embedded. I studied French. There are words in French, German, Latin, and all other languages that transcend a concept we can verbalize in English. The French have a term for it. It's called je ne sais quoi. It means literally, it is that I cannot explain this. It is a concept that simply doesn't have words. The language itself flows from the consciousness. And because we speak a common language, we conceptualize something beyond the words. I know you get what I'm talking about here, Chris.
Right,
because
right.
even as writers, we do this. The reason why you will read certain writers is because over time you develop a sympathetic mode with a writer, and you can begin to anticipate their style and anticipate their use of language and their word pictures. And I've got a train going off here in the background, so you'll hear that. That's just part of the soundscape.
It actually sounds cool.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's old school.
Yeah.
But again, when you communicate, words matter. It's like I said, language is how we think. If you're thinking in Twitterese or textese, which is basically truncated words and things like IDK. What's IDK? I don't know. BRB, be right back. You see, pretty soon, now you remove all the vowels.
Yeah.
Then pretty soon, all you're doing is you're substituting letters for words. You've reduced your language capacity. You've reduced your conceptual level. And as a result of that, you're reducing your ability to communicate in a spectrum that makes you uniquely human, because this is what humans do. We developed language for a reason. Language externalizes our thought concepts and puts them into a stream that communicates. And, I was always taught as a student, and even later when I was actually teaching, because I was, at one point, I was teaching computer software, that the student raises himself up to or herself up to the teacher. The teacher does not reduce themselves down to the student, which is, well, now that's the polar opposite of education, because we have No Child Left Behind and all this ridiculous harebrained, whatever they're calling it this year, which basically is designed to make everybody feel good about the fact that they're becoming increasingly stupid.
And it's not funny. There are many, many, many adults out there that can barely read or write.
Yeah.
They cannot write a whole sentence. And trust me, I get this stuff sent to me often. And I deal with the people, though. I will go back and keep making them correspond with me until I can figure out what they're trying to say, because it's good for them. And it's important that I kind of figure out what they're trying to tell me. And it breaks my heart that these people cannot read or write or articulate well, because let's say they do have a child, that child becomes ill, or they bring home an infant and they have to read the directions on how to fix their formula or prepare their medicine or give them the right amounts of things. How are they going to be able to do that if they cannot read or write or use those skills of thinking to figure it out?
Well, the government will be
so
happy to.
dangerous.
The government will be happy to send a social worker out to help you with that.
Well, if they can read or write, and you don't know what a danger you're putting yourself in by giving up the right of communication, which is what is being taken away from you. And if you can only communicate in short little blurbs, it's sad. If your vocabulary is so limited that you have to use a foul word for every descriptive term, and you know who you are, and you think it's great, and you'll send around these little sayings all through the Facebook that it's so cool, and people with high IQs are known to use foul language. Well, I'm sorry, but I know a lot of very smart people, very educated people, and they really don't use the F-bomb throughout their communication with you. They use it for effect when they need it to.
Exactly.
And it's more powerful that way. But when you say the effing dog came in the effing house and laid on the effing floor, and rolled around on the effing rug. Then when you need to say, and took an effing poop on my bed, it loses its effect. Do you understand what I mean? Because it would have meant a lot more if you were able to describe the dog coming into a house normally and then use that F-bomb for when he pooped on the bed. But you can't get that across to people. It's not that I'm against foul language. You have to know when to use it appropriately to make your point. When it's every single descriptive word or sentence you can think up has to be filled with these foul words, it means you don't know any others. And you're not fooling anyone. Nobody's thinking you're cool. It means you don't know any other words. So if that's how you want to go through life, fine. But don't think you're kidding people, and don't think you're cool, and don't think you're extra special. You just don't have any vocabulary to use. So, I'm really getting at the stage in my life that I'm very angry at all this. You are willingly turning into walking morons, and you will fight me and be nasty to me how dare I suggest that this is not a good thing for you to do? Well, if I didn't care about you all, I wouldn't say a word. I'd let you go about your moronic way. But I do. I want you to know and enjoy and experience the things that I have and Randy have in life, and not be the ones that never know what it's like to fall in love at night under a beautiful sky and feel that type of emotion and feel that kind of love, because you're numb and you've been altered, you've been messed with. Don't let anything do that to you. As a human, you have free will, and you can turn off, as Randy said, when you had enough of your gadget, turn it off. When you're done using it to work, shut it down. When you get home, talk to your loved ones. Do not run into a room or a corner of the room and put on another gadget. I'm begging you, fight for your humanity. I mean, I don't know what else to say, Randy.
Well, aside from all of the things that, we've been communicating this message together for a number of years now, and the point of this isn't to climb up on the rooftops and shame people or act condescending, but people need to be warned, and they also need to understand that part of communication is to aspire to something higher and better than what we are, which is really, that's what is uniquely human. Typically, human beings have been about coming into this world and leaving it somehow a better place than when they arrived. And that's not what we see anymore. What we see now is the degradation of the race in our lifetime. The degradation of the human intellect, the human soul, the human spirit, the creative impulse, the ability to communicate. And somehow or another, some of us just need to poke and prod at you to remind you of where you really came from. The choices that we have to make now are between becoming technological slaves or beings of a higher God. And by that, I don't mean religion. By that, I mean spiritual beings who aspire to things even beyond what we can conceive right now, which goes into imagination. Something that is dying so quickly. Go hang out with a 2 or 3 year old child, because they haven't had it, hopefully, bled out of them yet. But if you look at a child and you look how they play and you look at the joy, try to recapture that for a few minutes and then blend that into your adult consciousness in a way that you can come back to a place where you understand what is unique about being humans.
The beauty of being human.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's the beauty of being human. And Randy and I here have been sidestepping one thing both of us have to doing, and that's that we don't say to you what we think is behind all of this, because, well, we think it could be, many things. But the reason I stay away from saying, I think something very ugly is behind all this pushing humanity down to a more mechanical, controllable level. I don't want to really go there. And the reason I don't want to go there is I feel that it's something very ugly that's doing this. So I thought about this while Randy was talking, and I thought the only thing I can tell you is think of it, and as he said, not so much as religion. Neither one of us are going to preach religion to you. Everybody has their own views and thoughts about it, or nothing at all about it, and maybe you should think that out too. But I think we can all agree that in this universe and on this planet, there's been a constant balance and battle of good and evil, black and white. And that is the way of all things. I think of this situation where I keep saying to Randy, we're on the cusp, is that we are on the cusp with this technology bombardment of the last 60 years shoved down our throats, attached to us, hammered to us. Yes, they're wonderful tools, just like the automatic hammer thing they guys all use now. And that's what you should use it as a tool. But it's not wonderful as a way of life. I think of it as the battle between good and evil. And I see the technology as thus losing a heavy hand to the dark side, the evil side, the bad side, the taking away from the human side, the taking away our beauty, and the light, the white, the good is what we're trying to make you grab for and hold on to. And I don't know how to make it any clearer, or, and you can fill in the voids with any subjects you want or any way you look at it. But I think we can all agree that good and evil has been a constant battle on this earth, in this universe, everywhere. Even, space, it's dark and light matter, and that's what it is. It's a constant balance. And when that balance goes out, things change. And then there's usually a restart or a re-kick, or, a split of things, or something dies off and something new begins. And that's the cusp I'm talking to you about. And Randy, help me out here.
Well, we've been talking about, the singularity, but behind that is something that's anti-human. The nemesis, again, the predator. Right. And, we're reluctant to, is it Satan, the devil, is it Lucifer? Well, it's all of those things.
Right.
But what it really is our greatest enemy is ourselves, because we have allowed our nature to be turned against us. I mean, I still believe that people were basically good, despite what I see around me. But people were deceived, and they want a shortcut for things. There aren't shortcuts for this.
And you can't be weak. You have to find strength. You have to find that human will to have and be and want, and not give that up. And that's sometimes it's easier to just maybe sit it out. Well, don't do it this time. Don't sit it out. Go on, keep going. You were good.
The one thing that we have to do is not be pulled into the gravity of this rapidly spinning world system that wants to engulf us. There used to be this, there was a Broadway musical. What was it? Stop the World, I Want to Get Off.
Yeah.
Okay, remember that? I was a kid.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay, well, you can stop the world for a minute, because this is the spiritual side of things. Wherever you come from, whatever you do, you have the ability on a moment-by-moment basis to control consciousness, what's going on around you. You can stop the world and get off for a minute. Real simple meditation exercises, even just deep breathing exercises, or just stop. And take that moment to breathe and collapse time. Now, this is probably something we should do a show on sometime, but what I've discovered is that you can actually stop things for a moment long enough to compose yourself. And you can stretch that moment out because you can literally go into a timeless state. And there are meditation forms that teach you how to do this. There's spiritual disciplines. It's not that difficult. If you just stop for a minute and allow yourself to be still and quiet, you have, for that moment, the ability to collapse time and just stretch and not be pulled in to the vortex of everything that's going on around you. And when you do that, you begin to get marvelous clarity about what's going on around you, because now you become an observer and you watch what is going on around you, which is a very, very powerful technique, by the way, to become an observer. Very different than just looking or watching. An observer actually is engaging everything around him in a way that is a perspective that enables not only just seeing, but a sort of kind of almost participatory, but not in it. It's like you've moved out of it, you've zoomed out. It's kind of like zooming out a telescope or a zoom lens. So all of that are ways that for a few brief moments you gain control over this momentum and not allow it to suck you in. If you do that often enough, you begin to recapture a little bit more balance little by little until you develop this state of detached observation. And understand that reality is... Boy, how deep do you want to go on that? Reality is really, we are internally generating a reality stream. It's consensual. We are all agreeing this is our reality stream. But on a moment-by-moment basis, we get to influence that, change it, and affect it. So in a sense, your consciousness is the place where you begin to affect the change, and your consciousness stems from your heart and your spirit. So we're back again to the whole spirituality thing.
And you do need to... Randy's also correct when he tells you you're hooked up all day to something. It's pushing you along at a very rapid pace. And let's say you're shopping, stop after work, you still got your cell phone you're looking at, you go into the store and you're still taking phone calls. You might have one of your kids with you, but you're totally ignoring them. And you constantly are looking at your phone or still continuing to talk. And I have to ask all these people, who the hell are you talking to? That it's so important that you're ignoring your 6-year-old and pushing and shoving the people at the meat counter and over-talking them so they can't even hear themselves think. You're so loud on the phone while you do the shopping for your family. Are you seriously telling me that you are such an important brain surgeon that you can't put that phone down for 15 minutes and hold your child's hand and ask them what happened in school that day and pay attention to what you're picking out to feed your family for a few minutes while you shop? Or are you that attached to being a robotic half-human? Are you that far along? These are the questions you have to ask yourself. I don't own a cell phone. We have one that my husband keeps if we get in trouble and need an emergency thing. I hate them. I don't want them. He goes in and does a lot of the shopping, and I sit in the car with my dog. And I think every single one of you should take and go and pull up front so you can see all the people coming and going from the stores. And no radio, no cell phone, no nothing. You sit there by yourself and watch the people. I guarantee you're going to be stunned at how we've become so detached and so divided that we don't even seem to notice each other in our cars, standing right next to each other. We ignore our kids. We're walking into doors. We're walking into poles. We're doing all these things because we are so engaged with these goddamn machines. Go watch that. Do that for a half an hour one day this week and tell me if I'm not right that we're in trouble. And another thing I did, which was the best thing ever, you should all do this too. The night of the Poseides, Randy, is that the way? The asteroids, the meteorites.
Oh, yeah, the Perseid.
The shout. That night, at around midnight, my husband and I decided to go down this huge beach park where I live to see if they were letting the people in. They didn't think we thought maybe we could sneak in and go down the beach where it's totally black and watch it. And when we got there, they had a guy sitting in the toll booth and let us right in. Yeah, go ahead. So we thought, oh, they're letting people in. And we went down there, and you had to just have on your low lights. You couldn't, be bright. And as we pulled into the parking lot, we almost died. There were hundreds of cars down there. And everybody was silent. None of that stuff. No. Everybody had like a little lawn chair. They had snacks, like potato chips and soda. They had their children there. Everybody sat quietly. They talked to each other, and we all watched the sky. And when they started to shoot over, we would yell, "Over there, look!" And these hundreds of people, we all sat there in a group, and we quietly talked to each other, and we watched the sky, and we had this wonderful, surreal experience. And at the end of it, we were all stunned as we started to leave that we had spent almost 3 hours together sitting there in the dark watching this go on and didn't realize it because we were all reattuning. Our minds and our bodies were calming down. We were experiencing this wonderful thing together as a big group. We were calm. We were detached from our devices, and we were sharing a natural, beautiful thing to watch. When was the last time any of us had that kind of experience? These are the things we're missing out.
Yeah, we gathered around the energies of the planet and the solar system.
It was it was wonderful.
And I think people want that. I really do see that given the opportunity, humanity for a few minutes will put down their devices. They'll kind of raise their energy a little bit and make some attempt to reconnect back into the natural things.
And there were some younger, like teenage, like 19-year-olds down there, and they had their beer, and I think they thought they were going to have a wild time. And then there were these hundreds and hundreds of other people there, the cars were filled, and they were all like so into what they were watching in the sky. And I watched, and those kids, they cracked their beer, but they sat in their lawn chairs, and they just looked up too, and then they really got into it. When they started to see what we were actually there to see, it was fascinating to them because they never saw anything like that before. And it was just, it made me sad because when I was a kid, you could have experiences like that with your neighbors all the time. Like we watched a bat migration once, all the people that lived along the river where I lived. It was an amazing thing to watch and things like that. And we all did it together and sat and talked and enjoyed. But it's simple things like that are being given up that shouldn't. That's the beauty of being human and sharing with other humans wonderful events. That's what life's about. And I don't know, what can Randy and I do? Go house to house and collect your stuff and smash it and break it and say, you can have this one because you work with it and it makes you do good things with your job. But this one, what you're ignoring your wife and kids with, that goes. And your teenagers, no, they have to talk to you and your wife and each other. They can't have, I don't know what else to do, but please, people, somebody, write and tell us that we woke you up and that you're going to try harder to hang on to your humanity.
Can we talk for a few minutes, maybe? I know you've mentioned this on your blog, and we talked about it in the last conversation we had. You recently visited with the Real-Time Abductees group.
Oh, yes.
Give us a little bit of a synopsis on this. You and I had a rather interesting conversation the other night, which was a confirmation of something that, well, I had asked you about, and you took some questions to the real-timers. Explain a little bit about it for anybody who doesn't know who the real-timers are. They can obviously go find the articles on your website, but give a little bit of background on that, Chris.
Okay, real-time abductees are a specific type of abduction, and which is that the people that are abducted, first of all, have been abducted all their lives, starting when they were children. Secondly, they're lost time experiences where they really don't remember what happened to them while they were taken, but they do have recall of when the event first starts, be it they see a craft, they see a being, they become engulfed in light, they start to black out at that point, or something to that nature. So they understand when it starts. They do not have a memory of what happens during it, and they are usually returned close to where they were taken, but sometimes maybe not. Another town over, or, a distance away. They're not good at putting the people back.
No, they're really not. They suck at that.
And it's sometimes different clothing, and the people come back usually sick, vomiting, somehow bruised or hurt, and only flash memories maybe of what happened to them. And this goes on over their entire lifetimes. Sometimes maybe only a few times, sometimes many times, and over the years the people eventually become altered in some way and also start to develop, I'm going to say sort of a knowing, that they know what they are supposed to communicate and what they're not. And I mean to the rest of the world. And they also have changes in their IQ points, or let's say they never good at math, and as they go through these abductions, all of a sudden they're doing calculus in their head, and math whizzes, or have some kind of skill that they never had before that helps them get along in life. And we find that also very interesting, that these people were given the ability, because of the beatings they have taken over their lifetimes being abducted, that they needed help in order to keep going in life, because they had a lot of health issues or difficulties where they needed to be able to support and protect themselves, and they all ended up with some kind of skill that made them easily do that. So these people, I took years and years to find them by reaching out and asking for people with that type of abduction. And I ended up then with a list of them, and then I started to get them to allow me, because they're very private people, to interview them and start to write about them. And I did, and I started writing different case things, and as much as they would allow me to write about them. And then I started doing interviews over a summer where we actually got together, these real-time abductees, and in one place would talk about different subjects, and then I would write about it. And I tended to back off of it as we went along, because they were extremely unusual people and had very different ideas about what life is and what life isn't, and that type of thing. And I went back and updated with them over, the years, and they came to me this year and sort of, I told Randy, demanded that I come over and we have a group meeting. And when I went, they were very forceful with me. As a matter of fact, I was there to listen, and I got in a lot of questions, but I basically were just told that this is the way it is. And one of the main things was that the paranormal, they feel, is lost with humans. They won't even try. They don't even care if you want to hear what they say or whatever, because they many times offered themselves up and asked if there were any type of government institutions or college universities or any kind of scientific organizations that wanted to examine them, because they're very different. They had changes in their physical appearance over the years and things. Nobody wanted anything to do with them. They struggled with this type of rejection throughout their own lives, and even in a group were now being rejected. So they were turning very angry. They also dislike is a nice word. Highly dislike the paranormal because it's so idiotic. How people treat everything like a good Star Wars movie, don't take anything seriously, do not listen to warnings from people that really have had true encounters with things, and, society just, in their opinion, wants to stay deaf, dumb, and blind. That's the way they want it. So fine, stay that way. And then they started talking about that we are at the end of 2012, but they felt it started more around the year 2000, was a big turning point on this planet with the species that lives here, humanity. And 2012, it was kicked into high gear. So what the ancestors all told us about 2012, well, of course, and it didn't end in one day. The planet is still here, was going forward. But a new era of time has started where the split, and Randy, a little ESP with me when he really creepy. He's starting, questioning me, and I'm telling him, as I'm telling you, a lot of this stuff. And I said that they have one thing when it comes to enlightenment, which everybody feels this is it, the veils are coming down, and it's a time of enlightenment, and some of us are going to, be. They say no, it's not that. That's wishful thinking. That's humans putting things into a context that they can grasp and understand, but that's not what's happening. And with that, Randy, tell him what you say to me. He interrupts me and he says,
well, I said the race is going to split.
And I said, stop, just like that. Do not speak, Randy. Don't open your mouth. What they told me was, and from there they said to me, the human race is now going to split. And he almost fell off his chair, and I almost fell off my chair, that he picked that up without me getting there yet. And I went about then telling him how they feel that, and which is why I am so frantic about this show we did tonight, and so is Randy, that what is happening now is that the experiment on this earth with the humans and their given souls, because the soul does exist, by who gave us it or why it's there, that's everybody's personal choice to work out. I have my own thoughts on it, and I just understand we all own a soul, and the soul is the one thing we have free will over. And that means, are we hateful or kind, compassionate or killers? We control that. And they say that the humans now have run their course the way they are. They're not evolving the way that they wanted the human race with the souls to go on. So they feel a split is going to take place. And just as we told you, a more mechanical controlled being is going to go one way and continue on, and will continue on as robotic-like beings, which probably happened before in different places on the universe, and that's probably what's visiting us, these partial, biological partial machine creatures or what. Mm-hmm. And the other part of humanity, which was created and they wanted, I'll let they be whatever you want it to be, to evolve into a more compassionate, fully grown soul that's better than we are now. Meaning, humans, since the second we were put here, have been killing, fighting each other, power hungry, slaughter your neighbor if they don't agree, fighting right up to the second. We've been at war and stay at war. That's not where they wanted us to go. They wanted us to evolve into a better, loving, kinder, more creative being. And that's the split. And yes, some of us will. Some of you will. Others out there will. Who understand compassion and love and sorrow for what we seem to be giving up. And look at this world and their heart cries for what we do to each other. Those people who are able to evolve past that will. And it's a small split, meaning not all the souls are going to go that way. Most of them are going to go the machine way. So they're going to split off and go in one direction. And a small portion of the souls, and this, of course, you have to believe that the soul continues, are going to continue, but it's going to be a different being. It's not going to be in human form or this mechanical, less dimensional, unfeeling being that we're becoming. It's going to go on to a better, fuller, kinder soul and creature. So that's what they told me. And that's a lot. And I then said, well, am I supposed to write about this or talk about it? And they said, yes, they're not going to believe you anyway. But go ahead and tell them, because there might be one or two that will understand. They're in the very fight for their very soul and for the continuation of that soul's trip. And if they want to just give over and be non-thinking, feeling, non-creative, non-loving beings, that's their free will choice. And if they want more, they will know what to do, and they will hold on to their humanity and try to grow it and be all they can be and follow the more gentler road of what they see is going to be a new species that's going to divide out of this split. So that, to me, is the heaviest 2012 you can get as far as a new era. And that's what they told me.
And that was really the nutshell that we wanted to kind of put out with this show tonight. And, go back and listen to this, and we kind of wove our way through it. But if you didn't wrap your head around what that meant, wind the MP3 back up and listen to it again, because I consider this to be huge. We've been talking about this for years. And as I know, Chris, you're going to write an article on this. I've actually started doing some basic research towards some sort of writing project based around this. And the seed of inspiration for me was, well, what do we call this? You see, they're calling it the singularity. This is not a singularity. This has nothing to do with the human race merging into one collective silicone-based consciousness at all. Because if that was the point of all this, I got to tell you right now, I really, quite frankly, I want out of the game. Stop the world, I want to get off, and I'm leaving. What this is really about is what I'm now calling divergence, or the divergence. They want to call it the singularity, fine. I'm calling it the divergence as a counterattack. So I went and looked the word up because the word popped into my head. It's like I said to you, Chris, when we had that conversation the other night. My brain was going 2,000 miles an hour because I sat for hours, and the impact of that, because there was part of me that knew Now, I asked you to ask them some questions, and there was a part of me that knew, but not explicitly. This is the weird part of all this, is we kind of communicate symbiotically with each other. And so I'm connected to Chris, and Chris is connected to this group. So in some sort of weird mind meld, I'm kind of connected to this group as well.
Well, that's because the group told me that Randy is one of us, one of them. So whether he likes it or not, or wants to, make that announcement, that's why.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, because he's also a part of this real-time abduction thing. And so he relates to that. And they also pointed out, which, other things about this type of abduction, and there's many types of abductions from other species of things that exist out there, or dimensions that do everything from just, I don't know, play with the people, eat them, never return them, and there's all kinds of things going on. But this real-time abduction group is taken by this one specific, very earth-controlling organization. I don't know what else to call it. And they feel that it's sort of the bell rang, time's up. We had enough time, and we failed the course, and it's now going to change, and they're going to split it up. So that there's going to be another species born from this that's kinder and gentler than the human killing animal that is on the earth right now. And that they're going to allow, which may be by another species completely who's taking that over, to be controlled and put into a more mechanical, machine-like mode. So, all I can say is I'm glad I took a different road, because I don't want to do this anymore like that. I don't want to be that.
Earlier, Chris, there is a choice in all of this. Clearly, they, whoever they are, I call them I think of them as the progenitors, but I don't think that's a correct term now. Let's say they're the guardians. They're not going to allow the seed of this race to die out.
Right.
It will continue in another form,
right,
in another timeline, in another place.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Our choice is not even to allow them to have that power, but we take that power.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Well, what we did is there are people, there are souls that's going to make the split. And that's this enlightenment. People that are looking for that enlightenment basically know that they have to break away from what they're seeing going on now with society and the way people are. They're horribly uncomfortable with it. They can't stand the hatred and the just the badness that the black part of the white, this black and white, good and evil, the evil part of what's going on. They have to separate themselves from it, and they are the people that will go a different path. And trust me, if they listen to this show, they'll be giving up a lot more of technology. I guarantee it, because they'll understand immediately what we're talking about and be able to figure it out. But there are going to be many people that just say we are the craziest people that they ever came across, and go right back to their computer games.
Beautiful. Perfect.
And that's what I all I can say is, just be happy, because this is all you're going to get, and you'll be back and do it again. And there's not much more I can say about that.
Well,
but it's disturbing to know that there's a split going on.
And yet at the same time, this is what it is. And this is where it's at. This is the time that we're in right now. If you really want to understand the dynamic of what's going on in the planet and all the power games and all of the shifts and changes, look, it is a continuum in which there is positive and negative polarities always. Again, I'll just commend you. Go and read Chris's work over at endlessjourney.blogspot.com. Just Google Chris Holly. Go over there, read her articles. There's a number of interesting articles I'm posting on offplanetradio.com right now, including one about this thing called the wave, which is an energetic that is occurring. It's coming in little, let's just say it's coming in pulses right now. And if you attune yourself, you'll feel it. It's coming because it's a prompting. It is a galactic waveform that is prompting us right now to move in a certain direction, to realign, to reattune ourselves to the energies of the galaxy and of the planet itself. Then from this, people will make their choices. If you have your arse up your computer, if you are constantly plugged in, jacked in, tuned up, and running at 55,000 nanoseconds all the time, you're not going to get this, because this is about tuning into something very subtle. Mm-hmm. I talked about the singularity and the divergence. You know, Chris, words mean things. You're a writer. I'm a writer. This is our stock and trade. So when I finally found the word that fit this, which it took me 2 days to come up with this, I'm like, because I need to call things. That's me. Mm-hmm. This word popped into my head called divergence.
Yeah.
And the definitions of this really say a lot. Definitions are 1A, a drawing apart, parenthetically, as of lines extending from a common center. 1B is difference or disagreement. 1C is the acquisition of dissimilar characters by related organisms in unlike environments. Second definition is a deviation from a course or standard. And that's the one I want you to think about.
You know, that fits it very, very well.
That's the divergence.
Divergence.
So, Mr. Kurzweil, we're not talking about your singularity anymore. That's a failure. You are probably a very brilliant man who at one time made wonderful keyboard instruments, but your instruments are now outdated, and so is your hypothesis. There is no singularity. It will be called a divergence, and it will be two kinds who go in two completely different directions. And you, dear listener, have a choice as to where you go. And you can influence the consciousness of the planet and help a few other people decide as well. I think that's going to wrap it up for this time. We've run about 90 minutes, and I think we've given you a lot to chew on. I'm Randy Maugans with Chris Holly. This is the OfffPlanet Radio podcast for September 21st, 2015. Welcome to autumn. Go celebrate the planet and think about how you are going to play into the divergence. The truth is out there. It's inside you. We'll be back with the push.
Listening to OfffPlanet Radio.